Chapter 34. Is that even possible? What happened, Bot? Elo interrupted my thoughts when he joined me at my table in his anxious voice. You were fine a few hours ago at the headquarters. What happened? He asked me eagerly. I looked at his worried face and thought if I told him my thoughts directly, he would explode in my face as Kae did, and I could not stand my disagreement with my two friends at once. What do you want to drink? I asked him in a low-pitched voice to win some time so that I could gather and organize my thoughts. Of course, like any old friend, he understood my trick and played along and said, "Let me check their list first." He smiled and turned his face, examining the list as if he was really looking for something. He only did this to give me the time I needed. It became unmistakable to me when he finally asked for a simple cup of tea. A long silence overshadowed us, which neither of us wanted to break until I finally decided to cut it, saying, "Thank you for your response and for coming so quickly, Elo." He did not reply and gave me the look of someone waiting for some information. He was less interested in responding to my gratitude than he had been concerned about the reason for this urgent meeting, so I continued. Kae and I disagreed. He was taken by surprise at hearing this and leaned forward a little, showing interest on his face and concern in his eyes, which was reflected in his shaking, trembling voice asking, "Why, what happened?" He knew how close Kae and I were, and that we had hardly any disagreements. It was not clear to me at the time the reason for his reaction and his apparent anxious behavior, but to me my concern about what had happened with Kae was more worrying than my interest in asking him about his dubious attitude. So I told him, "We discussed some things about the next stage of my life after the mission." He straightened his seat with interest, and I continued, "How it affected everything and changed me completely. I cannot even go back to my normal life." I sounded exasperated when I muttered those few words, and that was when he said to me, "It is only a few days since you have been back after a journey that lasted almost 2 years in your earthling time. You will gradually return to your old way of life. Do not worry." It was clear from his relieved voice that his mind had suddenly eased after a noticeable tension, and that with those words he was trying to calm me down. "How do you know?" I asked him skeptically. "Nobody had done before what I did. Neither you nor your superiors have had any idea what I went through or what will happen to me next. Do you?" I was not waiting for his response because I knew perfectly well he did not have any, so I continued, "Other than the Earthlings, I am the first proximal human to make such a journey. And as the Earthlings say, I am your lab rat in that experiment." He wanted to interrupt me and say something about that last remark, but he could not help but nod his head bashfully in agreement without uttering a single word. "And the experiment is not over yet." I added that note as if I was knocking on his head, so he wondered, "What do you mean it is not over yet?" That was the question I was waiting for, and I answered right away. "I need to go back there again, to Earth." We were silent for a moment after this last reply, and to avoid any backlash or counter-thoughts on his part, I added, "I have brought you all the information you requested, and accordingly the government has approved the renunciation plan which you have proposed. But what all of you have missed was that the brief period I spent there was never enough, and you will probably need some other information when you start building spaceships and designing colonies." He waved his hands to cut me off and questioned me suspiciously. "What are you up to, Bot? What do you suggest?" I smiled and said, "Send me back." My surprising response was all I needed to put my plan before him on the table. So I added, "I will be your man on the ground, and we will keep all our channels open for instant communication so that whenever you need any information, you can send it to me directly. From there I will deal with it and send you what you have requested. Likewise, if I need scientific or professional advice, data or research on any new observations, I can ask you guys, and you will give me everything I require. Thus we will have an open line of communication between Earth and Proxima-b." I've tried to streamline my previous thoughts as much as possible to avoid confusion. Apparently I did a marvelous job from the profound and understanding facial expressions I saw then. I was not sure whether he was thinking about what I had just said or something else, but his relief was evident to me, as well as his ensuing question. "But does that mean you will be there forever, with no return?" He did not wait for my reply, but added, "And if we are fortunate enough and do our best, you will be alive to receive and greet our first cohort aboard the first ship to land on Earth." His eyes twinkled at the idea, and as he seemed to have made up his mind already, he continued, "I need to convince my superiors. I presume this is a simple matter, but it may take some time. I laughed and added cheerfully, I did not think I would convince you so quickly. Nor did I notice that Elo was looking in my direction, but his eyes were elsewhere. You did not, I did. I heard a soft voice echoing those words, and coming from behind me where Elo was looking. A voice that I immediately recognized, and with more joy than I felt already, I turned to face the speaker. Kae! I cheered at her with a big surprising smile covering my face. How? What? I did not know what to say, and I lost the words in my head, so Elo interfered. Kae called me right after I hung up the line with you, told me what had happened, and explained to me your crazy, stupid plan, and we discussed it together before I met you. He paused to greet Kae and invited her to sit with us while I was still overjoyed and foolish at the same time with the most gentle thoughts of that gorgeous lady standing behind me. Tell him the rest of the plan, Kae. A middle-aged, slightly short man addressed these last words to Kae, who was still looking me in the eye. Kae did not come alone this time. She came with the director of the Proximal Space Program, PSP, Ral, Elo's chief. And while neither Elo nor I noticed his presence when he came with Kae, he was standing right behind her when he said this phrase. Moderately, respectfully and steadfastly, Elo greeted his boss, who with his theatrical appearance had joined the scene. Without the former realizing the purpose of that strange advent, or why the latter had come with Kae unannounced, neither did I. Ral, firmly managing his gaze between the three of us, said in a stern, administrative voice, You will not go alone, Commander Bot. Captain Kae will go with you.